by the rivers of Babylon. Yeah, we sat down and we cried when we remembered Jerusalem. We were sick, Lord, near to dying. Oh,
Shalom, shalom, family. Welcome to another Tanakh review. My name is Zurishaddai, one of the teachers of congregation BINAH CHOKMAH, located in the Red Hook section of Brooklyn, New York. Our address is 382 Hamilton Avenue, Brooklyn, New York. And giving all glory and praise to the Most High King of the universe, Yehudah of our thanking him for our lives and the lives of all of you who will be listening to this. I say to everyone, Shabbat Shalom, and I pray that the Most High God will continue to be with each and every one of you throughout your endeavors that you desire in righteousness. As we do every week, we will be reviewing a psalm, and Nasik Zurishaddai will be going over the previous week's portion, which was Jethro. So thanking the Most High God for life, food, clothing, and shelter once again. And I'll hand over the mic to one of my teachers and one of my mentors, even Nasik Zurishaddai ben Yehudah. How are you, Nasik?
Great, Baruch Hashem. First of all, I'd like to give praises to the Supreme Eternal Universe, God of my forefathers, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the respective platform on a D.C.B. channel platform, spiritual leader, Chief Prince Ariel ben Yisrael, host Chief Uzael ben Levi, to the Princess Chief, Rabbinate, Connie, Maureen, brothers and sisters, visitors, I greet you in the tongue of my forefathers. Shalom Aleichem. Adonai Sabkadi Takufi Agi Chidadeka, O Lord, my lips, and my mouth should declare that praise. We've been having a few glitches, so I hope some of the messages have been getting through. I'm gonna try to, condense some things a little bit more so we don't have these problems. I'm not that computer savvy on my end, so that should forgive me. And if anything, I'll try to, hopefully we don't have that problem as much. So we were talking with the Sidra Yithro, and the Sidra, the psalm we're going to be doing is Psalm 19 that goes along with this particular portion. And Psalm 19 has a very interesting breakdown within it that would be covering this particular portion. But here in this particular portion, you got two, if I could divide it in two parts, we divide with, Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, and his return visit and the relationship they have and the advice they gave Moses. And then we go into the Decalogue, our revelation of Mount Sinai that we had with the Creator. The Decalogue, which is commonly known as the Ten Commandments, is styled a little different as we do it from a Hebrew perspective, as opposed to maybe a Christian perspective when they would start off with. We start off with I am, the Lord thy God. All right, so when we start off with that, that's the first commandment for us. But in the Christians, they would start off, So just to, we have an interesting thing in the book of the 18th chapter that Jethro brings Moses' father-in-law brings his wife back and the two children. So we find out something about Moses' domestic background in this particular portion of the Sidra. And we notice that Jethro happened to be, when we see in the early parts of this here, that Moses addresses his father-in-law. As I said in the past, when I dealt with the Sidra, and said, and it says, but he had sent them, but we noticed that he had sent his wife and his children back. We know the episode where his wife had saved his life. So, and he sent the children back, but you wonder, why would he bring his children into a place where he's trying to get people out? So that's always a thing to consider, that Moses, on his way down to Egypt in the first time, the beginning of his mission, was trying to bring his wife and his sons to a place, and they're going to stop off on the way on a mission for God. Going to stop off on a mission for God on his way down, and he trying to bring Israelites out, and it's going to be a difficult mission to bring Israelites out. And then you got to ask some questions that say, Jethro, when God before he left to go to the Creator on the Creator's mission, he asked leave of his father-in-law Jethro, and he said, well, why would he ask for leave from his father-in-law Jethro when God told him take this mission? You know, and there's a lot of issues you could say in respect and everything to that nature, but you could, you know, it bears a lot of discussion. From the very beginning, when he first was invited by Jethro to the house, because of the kindness, act of kindness that Moses did for his daughters, it said Moses was contented to stay with them and say, hey, you're fleeing from, you're a fugitive from Egypt. So now if you're a fugitive, that means people may be looking for a reward or something because there's a bounty on your head. But it said Moses was contented to meet with Jethro. Now, and one of the most highest level that Israel reached in this particular portion of history, you got a Sidra that's named after a guy who happened to be, well, we say Midianites. It's a controversy in rabbinic literature. Some might say he's an Ethiopian and everything. And they got their reasons that they try to, what they use to support their position. I would say that he's more of a descendant of Abraham and not a descendant of Ham. So I would say it in that level there. and being a priest of Midian, Jethro was aware of a whole lot of idol worshiping and a whole lot of different philosophies of worship of the time. And when we look further, why would Moses be contented to stay in somebody's house when he knew about the law and the God of his fathers, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob? So you can ask those questions. Why would Moses be contented to stay there? And why he would ask leave of his father, and why he decided to bring his wife and his children on such a dangerous expedition and then wound up having to send them back. And then did Jethro know exactly what the mission that Moses was on, to the detail about how dangerous it was? And if it was, would Jethro would have been comfortable allowing his daughter and his grandchildren to go on that mission? So it's a lot of things you could discuss and look at in reference to that. And then when we find out that when Jethro arrived here, it says that and Moses went out to meet his father-in-law and bowed down and kissed him, and they asked each other of their welfare, and they came into the tent. Which is interesting. It's this strong relationship that Moses had with his father-in-law. It's like they bond together. And yet this is a priest, and Moses is his son-in-law. But yet you don't find, you might want to figure that he might have was glad to see his wife. Definitely should be glad to see his children. But you see the relationship is more with Jethro than with the wife and with the children. How they bond so close, that he really felt close to his father-in-law. And we got to look at Moses' history. He basically was not, he had a little bit of time with his mother, but he basically had no real father figure in his life. So could Jethro be that father figure to Moses, that he looked up to him as a father? And father usually give people advice, and we know that later on Jethro gave Moses some good advice. But let's just go just a little bit further and look at this here about some of the characters. We try to explore some of the character of Jethro, because the only thing we know right now that he repaid kindness for what Moses did, and they're thinking of him as being an Egyptian. Could it be say, well, since he's an Egyptian, that help you, why didn't you invite the man to bring bread? Because it would seem sympathetic for an Egyptian to help somebody, especially daughters. And then you got to look at the situation. If Jethro was really a high individual, really wealthy as it is as a priest, then could have been possible. These are some of the things that could, you could discuss. Could have been possible. Why would he have all his daughters tending to the flock instead of servants if he's really that well off? And Moses had to be tending to Jethro's flock on his own himself later on when he got his revelation. So you wonder what was the real status financially with Jethro as well. And being a priest, he should be doing well. We know also, according to from back in Joseph's time, that the priests themselves was exempt from taxes. So the land was tax-free, and Joseph set that up, and it would be, no reason to really have Pharaoh's officers or anything going on Jethro's property. So he might even feel safe in that area. Moses growing up in Egypt, knowing that the priests had their own autonomy. So it's a lot of things that could be discussed here. I'm gonna move on really quick because I'm trying to avoid some of these glitches that I've been coming up with lately. But I want the people to talk these things over about the character of Jethro and about the situation, how Moses is content to stay with somebody that's idol worship. Some believe that Jethro was on a spiritual journey himself, trying to make changes and trying to find, discover a supreme being. And they talk about after they came back and they inquired of each other's well-being. But yet, why would Jethro inquire of Moses' well-being when he heard some of the great things, that's what brought him there in the first place? And why would Jethro himself go meet Moses in a place that's not so comfortable, in a desert? You bring in your daughter and your grandchildren to meet this man in a desert. What would be the purposes? How much did you hear? Did you hear that they're going to have this great event take place later on? And so there's a lot of stuff that's going on, and I'm going kind of fast a little bit, so I hope I'm not throwing too many people off. And while I'm discussing this, and then but in the 9th verse in the same 18th chapter, it says, and Jethro rejoiced for all the goodness which the Lord had done to Israel, and that he had delivered them out of the hand of the Egyptians. And Jethro said, blessed be the Lord, who hath delivered you out of the hand of the Egyptians, out of the hand of Pharaoh, who hath delivered the people from under the hand of the Egyptians. Now I know that the Lord is greater than all gods, yea, for that they dealt proudly against them. And Jethro, mother, father-in-law, took a burnt offering and sacrificed for God. And Aaron came and all the elders of Israel to eat bread with Moses, father-in-law, before the Lord. Now, before we get into this here, and the reason I'm spending a little bit of time on this here, because I'm going to do a fast jump within the teaching somewhat, is that Jethro marveled and was comfortable and praising the Creator because of what he did, not only for the people but for Moses. But he wasn't praising them for because God slayed the Egyptians, because that would be incompassionate. But the Egyptians was proud in, what they thought was good and what they thought was the area of salvation. That's what he praised that's what he praised the Creator for, showing them that he's God of gods, and in which is no other gods but him. So and Jethro himself said, now I know. That means that I finally found the God I'm really looking for in my life, because I'm already been worshiping, already been sacrificing. I'm always leading people in this spirituality, and I'm well acquainted with all the different other philosophies that exist. But I never knew God to that degree, that you're going to have a nation of people. Nowhere in history, one nation leads another nation in one day. Nowhere in history we find that. One nation leave another nation in one day. So we all leave, and so some of the great things you read about, and then one of the things I don't want to overlook, a lot of rabbinic literature would attest that the term that most people say, Baruch Yohe, or today more commonly said Baruch Hashem, they attest that to Jethro as being the first to say that. But we know when we go back in history in the book of Genesis, that the first one that ever said, Baruch Hashem was the unnamed servant of Abraham when he went to get a wife for Isaac, and the Creator made his journey successful. So, and that's the first one time we hear that term ever used, Baruch Yohe Wahe, which we mostly commonly say today is Baruch Hashem. It's one of the views I like to share because of that when we get to the commandments, taking the name of the Lord thy God in vain, thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, in the commandments, when we get to that particular portion, a lot of people say, well, the name is too holy, we don't use it, and this and that and the other. Well, that was a thing that they add on to after during the Babylonian conquest and destruction of the temple. It was freely used prior to that time. They could just say use it for frivolous reasons, for something that's really, because Havel is like something that's worthless, make it like a vapor that you say it so often about trivial things that really don't warrant such a holy and essence being name to be mentioned in that area. That's when you take it for vanity, where it become worthless because you use it too much. Not that it wasn't, it's illegal to use it, except in some rabbinical viewpoints, they don't use the name at all. And they don't even use the word, in some strict circles, Elohim, they would say El-Hakim, but that's just some rabbinic law, some around certain circles and stuff like that. But when we come with the Tanakh itself, so coming out the scriptures, we know it was used. The first time it's used is with an unnamed servant that, according to rabbinic literature, they say this is Eliezer of Damascus that went to get the wife for Isaac. So now the question would be, why do they credit Jethro as being the first to use that term, as opposed to this unnamed servant? And since they assumed the name of the servant was Eliezer of Damascus, then why he's not given the credit, being he's an outsider, he's a foreigner, and yet Jethro is a foreigner as well. So these are some of the things you could ask, why would they give Jethro the credit? Now we know Jethro was the first, actually offer up a sacrifice and his gratitude for what God had did for the people, and also, for his son-in-law. Here it is that the servant gave gratitude to the Creator, saying the God of his master, because he never had no experience with him. So both of these individuals, the unnamed servant, had no experience with the Creator, firsthand, only through a secondhand individual, and yet they gave praises. And so hence the question again, why he's cited by more rabbinic literature. Now we know the servant didn't offer up a sacrifice, he just went and took care of his mission. And Jethro offered up a sacrifice and wind up bringing the elders and everybody else ate of his sacrifice. So is it a lesson to be taught there? Is one of the lessons that Jethro's trying to teach us that it's not just enough to mechanically do what the Creator say, but also be able to praise him, as well in your action. So we were supposed to go out 3 days journey to offer sacrifices to the Creator, but yet you read and you see right here, other than one altar in my pit, that he made a great sacrifice for the Creator on our behalf because of what the Creator did for his people. And he come to a realization that there is a God beyond what he had known and experienced before. So those are some of the things to look at when we deal with this chapter. So much more that I can speak on, but just for the sake of time, I'm gonna move on, and we're gonna go into the same chapter, around about the 19th verse. All right. But no, before we're gonna go. We had to go back just a little bit to dealing with what Moses' actions was. And it came to pass on the morrow that Moses sat to judge the people, and the people stood about Moses from the morning until the evening. And when Moses' father-in-law saw all that he did to the people, he said, "What is this thing that thou doest to the people? Why sittest thou thyself alone, and all the people stand about thee from morning until evening?" And Moses said unto his father-in-law, "Because the people come unto me to inquire of God. When they have a matter, it comes unto me, and I judge between man and his neighbor, and I make them know the statutes of God and his laws." So you say, well, what laws? So it's this reason here that some people debate that is this before the revelation or after the revelation? Some people say this is not in chronological order after the battle of Amalek. Some people say that Jethro came, came in a sense after Mount Torah, after the great revelation when all the people stood at the foot of the mount. And so these are the laws that Moses is talking about. But if we follow a chronological order, you didn't see the revelation of the mount. So why would so what laws could he possibly telling the people at the time, when the only thing we was talking about prior to that time is the Pesach, how the ordinance for the Passover, and we also was dealing with actually the ordinances dealing with the manna and the Shabbat. So where we have these civil things coming up at. So and they said, they want to know that from God as opposed to civilization. Government always exists, with the people. You're going to have some form of government. How the government is styled, whether invested in one man or not, you're going to have some kind of civil laws that have to exist. So Jethro Washington saying that the people, and plus he brought out and pointed out an observance of they standing all day long while you're sitting down. They uncomfortable, but you're still comfortable. You're supposed to be the shepherd, looking out for the sheep, but the sheep is being stressed, looking towards the shepherd. So Jethro not only says it's not good for the people, it's not good for you, and so now Moses has so much respect for his father-in-law that he didn't try to make a rebuttal on reference of, he just explained what he's trying to do. He's trying to help him. And then when we go a little bit further, and Moses' father-in-law said unto him, "The thing that thou doest is not good. Thou wilt surely wear away both thou and this people that is with thee. For the thing is too heavy for thee. Thou art not able to perform it thyself alone. Hearken now unto my voice. I will give thee counsel, and God be with thee. Be thou for the people before God, and bring thou the cause unto God. And thou shalt teach them the statutes and the laws, and shalt show them the way wherein they must walk, and the work that they must do. Moreover, thou shalt provide out of all the people able men, such as fear God, men of truth, hating unjust gains, and place such over them to be rulers of thousands, rulers of hundreds, rulers of 50s, and rulers of 10, and let them judge the people at all seasons. And it shall be that every great matter they shall bring unto thee, but every small matter they shall judge themselves. So shall thou make it easier for thee, and bear the burden with thee. And if thou shalt do this thing, and God command thee so, then thou shalt be able to endure. And all this people also shall go to their place in peace. All right. So I'm just going to stop in there in that little area there, because I think I just brought one particular point in that area, is that not only Jethro tell him where his mistake is, because sometimes we quick to tell a person what you're doing wrong, but we don't help them, fix that wrong. Give them some counsel to be able to, for their benefit. So sometimes you point out they're wrong, and so you call yourself stopping them from doing further injury, but then are you helping build them up? Joseph went beyond interpreting Pharaoh's dream and gave him a remedy. Gave him some information how to make things work. He had Jethro himself not only saying, I'm concerned not only for you, but I'm concerned about these people. And I'm saying, these are your people. I know about your God. I sacrifice to your God. I sacrifice to the God that did this here for your people. I'm happy for you. And you figure a father-in-law fulfill a way that you sent your wife and children back. But I'm happy for you. I heard all this information concerning you, where Amalek had to hear if Jethro had to hear. Because Amalek area was further away from what was going on with Moses and the people. So he had to be able to hear that as well. So when we go, but Amalek that heard what was going on, and we read later on about the people coming out of Egypt. We have 40 years later and know that story. The guy, so it's like a contrast. One concern about the recognize that they didn't reach their death, and said so they could get also what he brings out readily for people. At that time, then Justice says the takeaways, and you give a recap of that in the book of Deuteronomy. There's certain qualifications that he said, well, I had to settle, I had to do without. So these are some of the things that we look at, that people had to have certain qualifications to do certain jobs, and that you got that as a leader, got to respect that other people could think like you can think. Other people care like you care. You just happen to be responsible for everybody, but you're not the only one that care. So we can learn some things from that. We know they reached Sinai in the 3rd month. So at this particular time, so one of the things that debate, and I was saying, some people think it's out of order because Jethro probably left before my time Torah. All right, but we're gonna find out that Moses, when he want his father-in-law, who he's so close to, and his sons and his wife to have that great experience. When we read later on in the book of Deuteronomy that, the stranger, the young and the old, everybody, women and children. And also we read about the hewers of wood and the water bearers was at the site when we get to the Exodus, the 20th chapter. When that great time when God revealed himself to the people that put him Mount Sinai, that not only the covenant was made with them, but those that's not even there that day. That means the covenant is still with us. So why would his father-in-law miss such a great event when you heard the great event of the Yam Suf opening up? And you heard what happened to the Egyptians. So that's my view, that this is in chronological order, in the sense that Jethro, where one person tried to hurt Israel, Jethro comes in to help strengthen Israel. And he bring out the word peace when they had a war just prior to that. But let's look a little bit in the 19th chapter, and it says, and I hear this a lot, that the response, and then it's in the 3rd month. So we know when the law was given, it's in the 3rd month. We know that as well. And also like 49 days from the time of the Exodus. That's why they always celebrate Shavuot. Well, before we had a fixed calendar on the 5th, the 6th or the 7th of Siwan. now we have a fixed calendar that we deal with now. So it's always going to be on the 6th of Sivan. But before the calendar was fixed, well, going according to Hillel the second, and you had Shavuot might come on the 5th day of Sivan, the third month. It might come on the 6th day of the third month, or it might come on the 7th day of the third month. So, but with the fixed calendars always come at this particular time. So basically 49 days, they get ready to get this revelation. But I just want to bring about from the 4th verse. You have seen what I did unto the Egyptians, and how I bore you on eagle's wings, and brought you unto myself. Now therefore, if you will indeed hearken unto my voice, indeed, and keep my covenant, then ye shall be my own treasure from among all the peoples, for all the earth is mine. And ye shall be unto me a priest, a kingdom of priests, a holy nation. These are the words which thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel. But we had these verbal clauses, you know, we had to do certain things to manifest that. So our job is really to show and exhibit what holiness is and how to live holy, all right? How to live according to the tenets of the Creator. That was our job. Not everybody in the nation gonna be priests, but everybody of the nation of Israel is selected to do their part to bring about and share and exhibit some form of holiness. You know, that's what we're elected to do. And we know already, as we skip on down, we know, read, which is important here. And I always like to focus on this just a little bit, because a lot of times it tend to be a little bit not spoken on as much. And the Lord said to Moses, Lo, I come unto thee in a thick cloud, that the people may hear when I speak with thee, and may also believe thee forever. And Moses told the words of the people unto the Lord. And the Lord said unto Moses, Go unto the people and sanctify them today and tomorrow, and let them wash their garments and be ready against the third day. For the third day the Lord will come down in the sight of all the people upon Mount Sinai. And thou shalt set bounds unto the people round about, saying, Take heed to yourselves, that ye go not up into the mount, or touch the borders of it. Whosoever touch the mount shall surely be put to death. No hand shall touch him, but he shall surely be stoned or shot through, whether it be beast or man, it shall not live. When the ram horn soundeth long, they shall come up to the mount. And Moses went down from the mount unto the people, and sanctified the people, and they washed their garments. And he said unto the people, Be ready against the third day, come not near a woman. Now, I just want to bring that part there. The last part I read, come not near a woman. As I said when I spoke on it in the past, we didn't read what the Creator said, that don't come near a woman. And then he never said to women not to approach the men. Moses said, don't you go near the women. So you would wonder why he add this extra ruling here when we just read that ruling was never spoken on in this particular portion. Is it that the men is the ones that show a lack of discipline, and the women could conform to more discipline? The men could be distracted much more in their mission than a woman is. Then a woman would be distracted from the mission. If you're supposed to be sanctified, cleansed, in a state of purity, that the women is, we're not, it had more discipline in that area than the men, because this is directed to say, come not near a woman. Or do you put all the women out on one side of the line, put them out the camp on this side, all the women across this line here, and all the men on this side? Do you do that? Or how would that work? And what is all the essence of what do you mean behind that? So those are things that you could discuss with your various leaders and teachers. Why would Moses make that extra statement when the statement of the Creator is clear enough? And then, could it be he went about a woman reaching that time of the month? And yet, they are the presence of the Creator at that particular time. So could it be that that time of the month, all the women were clean and nobody was defiled physically, male or female? So these are some of the things you could discuss with your various teachers, when you talk about ritual impurity. All right, now I'm just going to go to one little spot here and just talk about the Decalogue. When we find out that when it opened up in the 20th chapter, and it says, and the Lord spake all these words, saying, I am the Lord thy God, who brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. All right. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image, nor any manner of likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself unto them, nor serve them. For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquities of the fathers upon the children, unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. All right, so now, most people will question and say, well, okay, and the Lord spoke all these words saying. If the Lord speaks the words saying to who? I mean, if he's speaking, he said, once he said, I am, and address himself, that would be God speaking. So, is it the writer that's saying, and the Lord spake all these words saying? Or is this God addressing himself and saying, and God spoke all these words saying? And if it's the writer saying it, what do it mean? And if God's saying it, what do it mean? Because when you say something, he already going to talk, he's talking to the people now. So saying is that in our life, at certain times in the year, it's read when the Sidra Yithro, and it's read around Shavuot, and it's read when we get to the book of Deuteronomy. And they had, and mostly they have what they call a cantillations, what we sometimes I say trope, a melody or rhythm, the way you read just different from the rest of the scripture. And when you get to this particular portion of the melody, how you read it different from the rest of the scripture, you find out that you say, well, why is it so different here? And then you get, and within it, when you read aloud to yourself, you got one tone, which is a lower tone when you're reading by yourself, reading aloud, and then when you're in the synagogue, you read it a different tone, which is a high tone. So those you wonder, those are some of the things you can discuss with your various teachers that's into why is that as different proposed to the rest of the scripture. And in some synagogues, mostly the Ashkenazi custom, they rise when they get to that particular part and the commandments. Whereas in Sephardic customs, they don't rise because they look at the whole book as being holy and not just this particular area. The Ashkenazi may have a reason as well, saying that they're trying to relive that saga of being there at Mount Sinai and standing at the foot of the mount. So when we look at those are some of the questions you bring about. And then I am, is that a command? When you say I am. And like I said, when I dealt with the Sidra itself, first person pronoun nominative case coming from a supreme being itself, that lets you know that that's a command. It's a command that can acknowledge. Now, Rambam recognizes command, but then you got other sages and rabbis that might think it's not a command and they don't see it as a command, but it's a command. I will take that view that when the Creator said, I am, you must acknowledge that this is coming from somebody of authority and it's not a request, because laws, when laws is erected, laws is not a request, it's really a demand. And within the law, we have all the laws, the 613 laws, the statutes and judgments that we have throughout the Tanakh itself, the Chumash, the first 5. All right, so it's 613 laws, 248 positive, 365 negatives. We don't have not one law that teaches and command you to be humble. Not one law. No law commanding you to exercise humility. And that's something to think about and consider when you talk to your various leaders and teachers, in that area. So now, as we go further, I just want to pick out a few things in this law, and then before I go to the Psalm. One of the things I want to bring out is that when we get to the 4th, when we get to the commandment about the Shabbat, and it says, Zakor Yom HaShabbat, so Zakor, which in English is remember the Shabbat day, to keep it holy. All right, so now, and it goes on to say, 6 days shalt thou work, 6 days shalt thou labor and do all that work. But the 7th day is a Shabbat, Sabbath unto the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, nor thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor the stranger that is within thy gates. For 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in them is, and rested on the 7th day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. All right, so now, within this law that we're given a reason why it's so important. And also, you commanded to work 6 days. So now, what do that mean that I'm commanded to work 6 days? If I'm retired, which I am retired, that means that I'll be violating law, breaking law if I don't go to work because I'm retired. Or some people hit lotto and you got so much money and stuff like that, and they say, "Oh, you're violating law if you don't go to work." And I got to do it for 6 days. I can't take all this time off other than the times it's there. So that's the best discussion amongst the leaders. I don't want to just focus on everything and give you my viewpoint on it. Just point out these things that you have a command that part of observing the Shabbat is being able to work prior to Shabbat. That's something. Prior to the Shabbat would not exist unless the other 6 days were already done. So we get a whole lot of information when we look into the Shabbat itself, and how important it is. And I'm not going to focus too much on that area there, but and just in this particular setting. But we know that out of all the days, he blessed the Shabbat day. Now, some people think of Yom Kippur as the holiest of all days. And that's a majority of viewpoint. And for me, the Shabbat is the holiest of all days, but it tends to be looked down most as secondary compared to a day they call the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur. But Shabbat itself, and as I spoke on before, on Shabbat, you got 7 aliyot. And on Yom Kippur, you only have 6. So why you have 6 aliyot, and then you actually have 7 on the Shabbat, let you know the priority and the most importance of it. You have special offerings that's done on Shabbat. You encounter Shabbat more often. And then also you find out that the Creator himself led by an example by ceasing from his creative work on Shabbat. So these is to show you that the Shabbat more so, and the Shabbat was made for man and not a man for the Shabbat. So we'll be emulating some of the qualities of the Creator. But that's just a small thing of what I'm, presenting now concerning the Shabbat in itself. But it also shows that you don't even have authority over your servant or your beast on that day. You don't have any authority there. It doesn't mention the wife, but that's part of the family. It doesn't mention her, and it's for various reasons to discuss. But and I just want to focus on this. If I say what's the hardest command to observe out of all the commandments that we read about in the book of Exodus, this particular chapter, the hardest command to observe would be the next one that followed the Shabbat. Honor thy father and thy mother. And it goes on to give us a reason, so that your days may be longer for the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. So now, what makes that the hardest? The word kaveh is, like I said, it means honor, and also it has a root word of heavy or lead. We read about Pharaoh's heart, and one of the terms it uses that same root, kaveh. That's the same word. One of the same words when Pharaoh that refused to let us out of Egypt. It was that same word. And it becomes difficult for him to say, I'm going to let the people go. Well, it's difficult to understand how to honor your parent because it's an individual thing. That's what it is. It's no formula telling you in the command how to honor them, but you're told to honor them. And then they had to see it as you honor them as well. And it's for your benefit, not even for their benefit in that sense. So when we talk about the different laws and statutes and stuff like that there, we have a law that's given a reason with a penalty. The Shabbat is given a reason, but not a penalty. So taking the God's name in vain, you're getting a reason and you're held accountable, but it don't decide the penalty. But in this one, it's very clear. All these laws that we read in the Ten Commandments here could be a death penalty. But it's a summary. So I'm just going to go straight to the book of Psalms right now. But it's a long chapter, and a lot of stuff in there that I went over. But I always like people to go back over the particular schedule, especially this one here that's impact our lives the greatest. So we should discuss it more. The laws, Jethro, why this individual, as opposed to any other Israelite individual. All right, so in Psalms, the 19th chapter, there's a psalm that's written by King David. And this psalm here is very popular, especially the last verse in this particular psalm. And the psalm, if you could break it down, it has its pros and oppositions in the verses. And then the first 6 verses, it focuses on the laws and the laws of the Most High God. So when we look at that and focus on those particular areas there, then we have is actually broken. The laws is actually broken into 6 different parts. Those that study different rabbinic literature will know that Rabbi Yehudah Nasik, when he wrote the Mishnah, he broke it down from 6 different parts, explaining the first 5 books. So we got 5 books of the Chumash. They said the laws of Moses, but when Yehudah Nasik started to break it down and wrote the Mishnah, which is the same in the Babylonian Talmud as well as the Jerusalem Talmud, because he's the author of it. is broken down, and he breaks down and explains laws in 6 different categories through 6 books. And it's taken from this particular psalm here. And this particular part of the psalm here is read, especially the last verse, more, than a week than any other, and especially last verse, more than any other thing we might read in a regular prayer every day. Those that follow a regular prayer system, a rabbinic prayer system. So we'll start in 19th chapter.
We're in the
David.
book of Psalms,
Psalms.
chapter 19, verse 1. For the leader, a psalm of David. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. Day unto day uttereth speech, and night unto night revealeth knowledge. There is no speech, there are no words, neither is their voice heard. Their line is gone out throughout all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. In them have he set a tent for the sun, which is as a bridegroom coming out of his chamber, and rejoiceth as a strong man to run his course.
Hold right there. All right, before we go any further. All right. These 6 verses here, it talk about how God is recognized, and it goes, heavens declare, his glory, and then the firmament shows his handiwork. So it's saying like it's something. It make a declaration on one part, and then I'm showing the manifestation of what I do on another part. And so this is really what anybody that consider themselves to be atheists, when they read this particular psalm and they look at the things that actually exist, then they have a rough time, unless they have it. I mean, already recorded. When you look at the psalm here and you see about the heavens, and when they talk about it declares the glory of God, and they talk about it shows his handiwork. You look up to find out what's going down. That's what we used to say. You look up to see what's going down in our life. We normally homo in the Greek language. Homo meant really being able to look up. Man being able to look up. And we know we got all these different semantical change. Now we talk about a homo, they got this negative concept. But we are one of the creatures to look up. Any other creature had to get their attention and look up. And while we're looking up, we're trying to wonder what's above us, and we're contemplating about why they up there, not falling down. Because we know Newton is not the first one to discover, gravity. Everybody in ancient times know you throw something up, it's gonna come back down. So when we look up, we're trying to figure out how what effect that has, what's holding that up there. Look at this big old sun. Look at this big under the moon, and if it's at night. Look at these different stars, and you say, well, what's holding them in place? And then why it tend to change every now and then, and why the sun tend to go this regular course all the time, but yes, slightly a little different angle. All right. So, and then we know the sun moves like me. It moves. It actually spinning about, I believe, off the top of my head, over several many millions of miles. I believe per second, whatever, a minute, and the Earth is moving along with it. But we don't feel it. So we gotta say, well, how come we don't feel that it's moving like that? And we look at the sun as a part of how it affects our life. Every people in ancient times. But here in the Psalms, when you get down to about the sun, it's a spot, it's a chamber that it comes out of. You say, well, I don't know what chamber it comes out. I just know it appears and it seems to disappear. But it says there's a chamber coming out. It's like a bridegroom. So a bride, and the psalmist David, who happened to be a man of the field and a man after God's own heart. When he's saying this psalm, when you're out in the field as a shepherd and you're out in the field as a warrior, you tend to look at the stars at night and contemplate before you even go to sleep. And it's saying that a bridegroom coming out of his chamber, what do? He's excited, ready, to get, to reach his goal, which in a regular bridegroom, his goal was to get married. So the son reaching this goal is in a hurry and strong and running the race. And when it runs a race, it tell you that the race is running is continual. It's not an ending race. It's like a continual race. And even though you went around and reached your starting point, you still must engage and start again. So this is what David is describing here. And talking about his course. I'm reading the 7th verse.
Verse 7 reads, "His going forth is from the end of the heaven, and his circuit unto the ends of it. And there is nothing hid from the heat thereof. The law of Yehovah is perfect, restoring the soul. The testimony of Yehovah."
All right. Now, they talk about the manifestation. You know what I mean? So in the Decalogue, when we're just talking about, and this call, this psalm is mostly going to focus on the revelation of Mount Sinai. So in the Decalogue, the 10 Commandments we read when it's getting there, you talk about, the people saw the thunder and the lightning, and they heard the noise of the trumpet and the mountain smoking. So when we look at that, I hope we can go out there in this trip. You still hear me? Okay. And when the people seeing the revelation of Mount Sinai, we can you say, well, how do persons see sound? Rabbinically, they also seen, they also heard light. So we know in the scriptures it says they seen the thunder. So they seen sound. That's what's written in the scriptures, in the Peshat, in the simple writing. But even people go further and said at that revelation there that they actually heard light. And both of those is hard to fathom because we really don't see sound. We might see a result on science that show this is waves because of certain air moving, but actually seeing the sound, well, we really don't see that. And then hear light. So whatever the revelation they had at Mount Sinai was phenomenal. And there's a lot of discussions about what do that mean. And I always ask people to talk it over with the different leaders and teachers, because I don't like to be putting too much input out in the different areas of different congregations. But one thing I would share is that the revelation to be able to see something, in one sense, it means to perceive it and understand it to the utmost, because an experience you can only talk about, but you can never share it. And that's what they had. They had such an experience at Mount Sinai that all they could do is talk about it in the most metaphorical terms they can, but they can never ever share that experience. Some people would say, well, oh, you touched my funny bone. All right. I know what you're saying, but I don't understand what you mean. But I know what the word funny mean. I know what the word bone mean. But your experience is your experience. It's not my experience at this particular point in time. So your experience is only known to you. So everybody at at Mount Sinai had a unique experience. And then what's also David recognizing that, and he goes on to show that also at that particular time in that particular experience, that everybody was on the same level as Moshe Rabbeinu. When we read in the book, it says Moses is the only one that heard God talk to mouth. Well, it made it clear at Mount Sinai that 3 million people, at least, the mixed multitude, the Israelites, and the hewers of wood and the drawers of water, heard God speaking. And that's what shook them up. They heard the voice of God. And they didn't have to go through a vision, a trance. The Torah that goes along, Isaiah has, this experience, and it's like a vision that he's actually in the court. in Ezekiel is a vision. But these people was not in a vision. They was conscious and prepared to meet with the Creator, where he could hear the sound from God. And that's why they focus on, said, you see no manner of similitude. All you did was hear a voice. That means that one voice that's unique. And I always say that usually the voice has to be so strong and so unique. Normally, when you hear echo, that means your voice, the sound, and went out, encountered something, and bounced back at you. That's what the echo is. And where the Creator word goes out, and it said, will not return void. That means it accomplished that which he sends it out to. So here it is, that experience that those people have, that we only can imagine, but we try to live up to that experience when we read those commandments and imagine what the people is doing there. All right, so let's go a little bit further. All right, and it says, the law of the Lord is perfect, restoring the soul. Testimony of the Lord is sure, making wise the simple. All right, so right then and there, God's law is perfect. That means we're talking about, when he brought it, I didn't want to take too long on that. But when you talk about different laws, matter of fact, let's bring this out right quick. In the Psalms. Seven verse. Okay. All right. And a seven Torah Adonai Timima. All right. And it says Meshavat and Nefesh Adu. So they use different terms here. You're gonna have 6 different terms that's used in describing Torah here within this particular psalm. And hence that's why Yehudah Nasik, when he wrote the Mishnah, wrote it, in 6 different portions. And when you notice that if it's 6 terms, they use 2 terms to counter the other term. And so what we have is the Tanakh. Our Tanakh is broken into 3 parts. We got the Torah, which is supposed to be the instruction, the first 5 books, pretty much. And then we got the Nevi'im, which is the prophecy. That's all the other books in between. And the last part we have is the Ketuvim. So if you take from this psalm, if you take the different portions from this particular portion of the psalm and read it and say that the pros and the counterparts that's used in describing, law, mishpatim, ordinances, kokim, judgments, adut, testimonies, then you could put 2, 2, and 2 for each part of the scripture as we bring it out. But that's just some trivial that people might want to be concerned with. So let's pick it up from the testimony of the Lord is sure, making wise the simple. All right, so 9. All right, so right then and there that you say, well, when we look at Genesis, most of Genesis and a good part of Exodus, we get a lot of narration. But when you talk about testimonies, sometimes we need to have a storyline in order to be able to grasp why this come into play. If we didn't have a storyline, we wouldn't understand why we need certain laws. So some things you have to have a storyline to say, why did we get to this point here, and why do we need to set up a certain type of standard of living? And that's where we have a lot of narrations in Genesis, and we really don't get into a lot of government or civil law until we get to this point here in Exodus. All right, so this would is bringing it here that when we start to look at it, we're gonna start to be we always had this saying that he didn't know if the law should not be confounded. But let's read from the 9th verse.
Verse 9, it reads, "The precepts of Yehovah are right, rejoice in the heart. The commandment of Yehovah is pure, enlightening the eyes. The fear of Yehovah is clean, enduring forever. The ordinances of Yehovah are true, they are righteous altogether. More to be considered are they than gold, yea, than much fine gold, sweeter also than honey and the honeycomb. Moreover, by them is thy servant warned, and keeping of them there is great reward.
All right, right there. All right, right then and there. Now, this is telling you one of the great reasons why you should observe the laws, statutes, and judgments, the ordinances. And they all use different terms here. So I don't have time to go through all the terms here, but then that's why I always tell people to go back over the different portions of that I bring out and understand the difference between, the terms of Torah, the terms of Mishpatim, the terms of Kukim, the terms of Adu, all those different terms that's used in this particular psalm, and how it's translated and how it applied. That those are the things that we got to look at as we try to understand how it benefits us the most. And then it's tell you right then and there that it has value, and not only has value, but it has taste. And it goes on to say what, 12th verse?
Verse 13.
Oh, 13, okay.
It reads, who can discern his errors? Clear thou me from hidden faults. Keep back thy servant also from presumptuous sins, that they may not have dominion over me. Then shall I be faultless, and I shall be clear from great transgression. Okay.
All right. Sometimes we think we know better. In a nutshell, we think we know better. And I was sharing with my kids when they was coming up, and different things and different people as well, that evil always look good, always attractive. If it's not attractive, no one get involved. You never have to teach a child how to enjoy themselves. You got to teach them how to be disciplined and avoid creating chaos and habit. That you got to teach them. But to let them go ahead and do what they want to do, they're going to do what pleases them naturally, not understanding whether it's going to harm them or not. So the law itself helps regulate us in a sense. And not only that, it's regulating us for our good. And that's one of the things is how far as the value and understanding that. But let's go ahead and we're going to finish this out.
Verse 15.
Yes.
Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable before thee, O Yehudah, my rock and my redeemer.
All right. Now, that's the last verse there, and that's the most, that prayer, usually when I open up, and those that know, tend to follow, I always usually say, Adonai Septagi Takufia Giti Lateaka. Oh Lord, open down my lips, my mouth should declare that praise. Here's, Yehudah son imbre fi behe only be the Fineka and Nasiri Regoali. This one here, this last verse here, that is, they both part of Amidah. First one you start, the first one I say is before you get into the Amidah, the Amida, which is a standing prayer, or sometimes they refer to it as Shemore Esrei, which is 18 blessings. They say it's 18 blessings, but there's technically 19 blessings in it, but using number 18. So there's either say the Shemore Esrei, or either they might say the Amidah prayer. And the Amidah prayer means from the word to be standing up, just because it's said when you're standing. So this last line in prayer that is said in the 19th Psalm, it said basically if you go follow a tradition, you'll be saying it at least 45 times within a week. Just last line, because you say it all the different Amidahs and all through the time, 3 times a day if you pray. So it comes in at the end of the Amidah all the time. But let's look at this here, because since we say it so much, let's try to look at some of the things he's saying here. All right, words of my mouth. All right, so if the words of my mouth, a lot of times we say what we don't mean and mean what we don't say. So the psalmist here, David, saying that I want not only the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be accepted before thee. I mean, I want them to be in agreement. Sometimes we say one thing, but we're not in agreement with what we say concerning things in life, concerning what we say even about ourselves. We say it with as we used to say coming up, you have a will and a won't. And so the psalmist is saying that I don't want to be double-hearted with myself. And that's what the psalmist is bringing out here. And then it goes on to say, and whatever I'm saying, that is appropriate. Because sometimes people don't realize that some things you might say is inappropriate. It's, and then they say, oh, I just was kidding. Well, I didn't mean to say that to hurt your feelings. So it's like watching over it. So when we pray, and one of the things about praying too, people don't realize that in the congregation, electing to pray, especially if you got a cause and whoever leading the prayer in the congregation, that you carry a lot of burden upon you, because everybody in the congregation trusting that you're going to say the right thing, not just for your behalf, but for our behalf, if you're leading the prayer. So when you lead the prayer, you got to say, okay, why is it that they find me and deem me worthy to stand before the Creator on their behalf? So you develop a type of humbleness and humility, because they want me to start and say the prayer. So if I'm going to say the prayer and they wanted me to say it, and I'm supposed to be addressing the Creator, I'm addressing it not on my behalf at first. I'm addressing it on their behalf. But then if I'm addressing it on their behalf, do I think that I'm better than them because I'm saying it? I don't have the flaws that they have because I'm saying the prayer? Or I got to really understand, first I got to praise the Creator, then I got to thank Him, and then I got to, make sure that when I address the prayer on the behalf of the people, that I don't be the problem that the people elected to say on their behalf, and that my words can ascend before the Creator. So when whoever says a prayer on behalf of anybody, they trust you, and they actually stating that your spiritual insight and connection at this particular moment in time, is greater than them, than their own, and they trust that the Creator will give an audience because of because of who you are, not because you're greater than them, but because who you are, and you have such a genuine concern. And that's why when Moses went up to pray for the people, it wasn't so much about him, it's about them. When they asked Samuel, to pray for them, it would be considered sin if he didn't pray for them. But it was about them and not him. So when you stand and somebody asks you to pray on their behalf, then you got, like I said, it's never a command in scriptures to tell you how to be humble. But that is what you got to exhibit. And that's what the psalmist is coming up with in this particular prayer. In the last line, in that particular verse, it says, "O Lord, my rock and my redeemer." And then a rock is stable. A rock is, So since the rock is stable, and a redeemer, what do he do? He transports one thing from another person, from one place to another place. Because if you redeem something, you're bringing it out of one spot to another spot. So what is the psalmist saying when we was talking about earlier in this psalm? That when he talking about the words of my mouth and meditation of my heart be acceptable before thee, is that if I'm wrong, don't let me be stable and so sturdy that you don't save me from my wrongness. So sometimes I need to be stable. If I'm doing right, then allow me to stay stable and firm in what I'm right in, if it's okay with you. if it's in a long agreement with the Creator. So that's why the psalmist said that if I'm right, I want to be there, and it helped me stay there. So if I'm doing what the Lord say, I'm doing all the things that you want me to do, then help me stay in that spot. Don't move me from that spot. Don't allow me to be moved from that spot. But if I'm doing wrong, then redeem me, because now I'm being hard-headed. I'm being a rock. I'm too stable in the wrong area, and I need you to transport me into another area. And that's the song we say all the time. So we look for the Creator not to leave us to our own devices all the time. And we always want to be on the right side of the issues. So with that, I hope you got something out. But I said I hope I didn't break up that many times this time. And I say any mistakes been my own. And everybody have a great a good Shabbat, coming up. Shalom Aleichem and Shabbat Shalom.
Prince, before you go, I was reading this, actually the last two words in Hebrew.
Yes,
Zuri, where go Ali. And the funny thing is, they both use parts of our names, because the Zuri is part of your name, right? Zurishaddai. And the Go Ali is my middle name. That's what I put as my middle name. So that I'm sure you can make something out of it, that our names, parts of our names are together.
Hey, you already made something out of it when you had the parts of middle name. I mean, a name usually try to convey what you want to do in life.
Right.
Characteristics. That's why when people was naming the kids, even from the patriarchs and everything like that, it's only today around circles with people that's not really religious inclined. So let's get a name that sound good. Get a sound. So they make it a name, but just be a sound. I like this sound here, so they make up a name. But really, when you name somebody, you're actually hoping that they emulate a certain type of character, and that's what you're trying to predict on the individual. But and that's one of the reasons why the Creator gave Moses, such a hard time, that he focused on a name, where you're going to try to say, this is what I'm going to be, this is what I am. And that's why I always say that when they translate I am that I am, it's like a limited thing. I will be what I will be. That means I'm not constricted. But I am that I am, that means I have no say-so. But I can say I am that I am. I have no say-so in it. But not a God that we worship and serve. So that's interesting. But redeemers, that's what the Exodus is about redemption. And we was redeemed. So a people that's redeemed at the very end will never have a firm foundation unless they got a type of government. So that's one of the reasons of leaving Egypt, to go and be cleaned up enough to get a form of government, so that when we get to our place in peace, that we have some laws to govern ourselves by. Only in America, you could pay your way out of certain things. And well, not just America, but most countries, when you use laws other than the laws of God, you get because they're not looking for truth and they're looking for justice. Many people defend people that they know to be guilty, but they say, I could get you off. I can get you out of this. In our way of life, it's not that. The Lord, that's why the psalmist said the laws of God are perfect. And that means that not only that it converts the soul, that means it changes your outlook inwardly and outwardly. That's what the psalm is about. So.
Torah about Nasik. Hallelujah. Okay. Blessed be the Most High God. May everyone have a great week. Yom Tov to everybody, and I hope that the Most High God will bless us all. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Shalom.
Shalom.